Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I would like to call this meeting to order. So before we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, we have a unique situation. I think you remember that at the last meeting, Jared Couch, our Councilman Jared Couch, said he was going to be training in Spokane, and he is. He's also currently on the line, and he would like to be a part of this council meeting via teleconferencing. And in order for that to happen, I will need approval.
So moved.
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Second. Is there any discussion or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Hello, Jared.
Hello, Madam Mayor.
All right, very good. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So in front of you, you should find a late material. It's a planning commissioner reappointment. Linda Tilley, who has been on the Planning Commission, would like to serve another 6 years, which we are all thrilled about. She's done a great job. Her position was to begin January 1st, so to get her on board, I would very much like to add this to the consent agenda if nobody disapproves or has any concerns. Okay. All right, so I'm looking then for an approval of the agenda, and it would need to include the Planning Commissioner reappointment material.
I move that we accept the agenda as stated with the addition of the Planning Commission.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And so let's move on now to roll call. So, Cheryl, thank you so much for serving. Will you take the roll?
Councilmember Judith Dunley.
Here.
Councilmember Sheree.
Present.
Councilmember Chad Olin.
Present.
Councilmember Carl DeYoung.
Here.
Councilmember Jared Couch via conference call.
Thank you. I'm here too.
And I'm here
Oh,
too.
I'm sorry, Brenda. Councilmember Brenda Kinzer.
Present.
All right.
You were sitting.
All right, so you know what to do here. I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda unless someone is wanting to pull any one of the items off the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda 1 through 10 as written.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we actually do have a guest speaker, but he's going to be speaking under new business regarding the Main Streets program. So we'll just move on to staff reports, and we'll begin with you, Chief Tucker.
I think I was.
Just a couple of things. We completed our construction in our office. Nathan's not here tonight, but Nathan and Kevin Kesty came in and removed a section of wall, put in a door, did a great job. They jumped right to it and did it all during this bad weather and got her done quick and clean, and it looks great. We have Officer Derek Lowe. He is at the Equivalency Academy. Jared had to drive to Spokane. We got Derek in Burien, so he's down in Burien, and he'll be there for 2 weeks. So you may have gotten... if you get any questions, we did a search warrant out in the 1300 block of State Street just I think it was Monday morning, and had a lot of police activity out there. Cars stopped alongside the road, and we were searching a residence there. That was a couple of brothers got into a fight. One of them pulled a gun on the other one, shot a couple of rounds into the ground to scare the whole family, and we were out there serving a search warrant on that the other day. We have one in custody for a felony assault right now. But nobody got hurt, and everybody involved is mad at each other and at us for arresting, the poor brother who was just trying to figure things out with his little brother or something like that. Kind of those night shift Sedro-Woolley things. And something that I was involved in the Leadership Skagit program last Friday was Law and Justice Day over at the Transit Center in Mount Vernon, and then the county has moved a lot of the homeless people out of the in the breezeways under the county buildings across the street from the old jail, and those folks have all taken up residence in the transit center. And if anybody thinks that we have any sort of homeless problem with one or two people downtown, when we do have a problem for specific businesses that have that. Mount Vernon is in a crisis mode. I think we've all seen that and noticed that. And this is going to become a bigger issue with the things that are coming up. The county's engaged in that lawsuit against the pharmaceutical companies. And one thing that we heard at the Challenge Day on Friday, and I think this number is correct, was the mobile needle exchange is exchanging up to 15,000 needles in Skagit County every week. That's a lot of needles, and that's just the ones they're getting. That's not counting all the others that are being used. These are just the ones that are getting turned in and exchanged, and that's an average. That's 15,000 needles. We have a homeless epidemic. We have an opioid epidemic. And these things are decimating us. And adding to both of those issues are mental health issues that we really don't have a handle on, really. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. There's a lot of things in the works. I was talking to somebody from the Sheriff's Office, and they're getting on board with that Public Health Trust, Skagit Public Health Trust, which is helping address some of these things, and invited the mayor to our Law and Justice Committee meeting once a month on a Wednesday morning. We kind of address some of these issues as well. But there's a lot of issues going on that are really hitting home to all of us. I just wanted you to be aware of that. And finally, Mayor, you left me a message asking about the broken windows, and I talked to Carl before on the way over here. And just to give the council kind of an update, since April of this last year, we've had 47 windows shot out in town, both on cars and businesses, and those are being done probably with a slingshot and ball bearings. And I was talking to Sergeant Harris tonight, and he was estimating that he just off the top of his head believes it's somewhere between $18,000 and $20,000 worth of damage in the last, say, 8 to 9, 10 months. So we don't have really much to go on these. We did get a intact projectile that hadn't been handled by the person who had their window shot. So we've got a little bit of evidence to go on. We've recovered several of these ball bearings, but a lot of them have been handled by the people who found them. And so we're going to send ours off to the crime lab so if we can come up with anything off of that. And we're also going to do a little bit of rustling the bushes to see if we can get anybody to give us a lead on that. These happen all over town, and it's just like a random. We had 3 of them today that were reported, and they probably happened in the last 24 hours. We have no idea when, but it's kind of an ongoing plague. And with that, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Chief Klinger?
Just a couple items, Mayor. I went to a meeting, I believe it was Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday. They had over at the county working on setting the county's EMS levy rate. It looks like They haven't set it officially that I've noticed, but it looks like it's going to be set at about 44 cents per thousand. And so that's going to be an increase from the one that we're currently under. They're planning to take that to the ballot in August. So as we get more information about that and what they're going to do with the levy raise, I'll bring that back to the council so everybody has that. Also, we'll have firm up these dates tomorrow, but in the spring, either April or May, we'll be hosting another CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Training here at Sedro-Woolley. That's an 8-week training program. So if anybody's interested, please let us know, and we can get people information on how to register to do that. So that's coming up. So it'd be nice to see that again here in town. So
great. Thank you. John.
So hopefully people have noticed downtown that the DDO West store that burnt down, the site has been repaired over the past couple of days. We had the property owner fill the site, and they're just about done. They've got it mostly leveled and tamped. They're going to put some grass down, and we'll make sure that it's safe before they take the fence down, and hopefully we'll have some grass growing here March when we get a little bit more of a growing season. And hopefully we'll have somebody building on the site, and looking forward to somebody building on that site. Rest assured, we will be reviewing the design of any building that goes there and insisting on commercial below and a building that fits into the downtown historic district. So no need to worry about that, but we'll be doing our best to work with future builders there. Thank you for the last minute, the late materials, pointing Linda Tilley back to the Planning Commission. I appreciate that, and I'm sure Ms. Tilley does as well. I'll let her know right away. I'm keeping an eye on a piece of legislation in the State House right now that is aimed towards reducing cities' ability, reducing the ways that annexations work, which would make it more difficult for property owners to annex into cities. I'm keeping an eye on that. I watched the House committee meeting on it, the local government committee meeting on it this morning, which was a lot of fun, actually, watching legislative open hearing. It's a very different process than we use, so it's tough to understand, but there wasn't a lot of support for the bill, so hopefully it doesn't make it out of committee, but if it does, I'll be making comments in the future to make sure that the city is continued to be able to annex in the way that we have in the past. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, John. Aaron?
Thank you. And just a reminder with Councilman Couch on the speakerphone, if we use our microphones, that will definitely help him in hearing, because he's hearing us through the speakers in the room onto the phone rather than through a direct tie-in to our AV system. Just a couple items from me. We're working hard right now on the transition for the library from city operation to joint operation with the district running the library beginning on February 19th. So lots of work on getting those pieces together. The city and district had some folks in Olympia this week to advocate for the capital request, so we're continuing to work on that effort as well as we move from the pre-design to the design phase on that project. And then it's just been kind of busy at City Hall with various transitions. So I would mention timing-wise on the council replacement, we've looked at the calendar, and I think it's possible that we would have the ability on the February 7th meeting at your study session to do that portion of the process where the council would review all of the applicants and identify which applicants you'd like to interview. And then we could conceivably do the interviews on Valentine's Day. So a real test of the commitment. The following regular council meeting would be February 14th. Otherwise, we'd be looking at February 28th. So we're kind of just looking at the calendar. But with the deadline of January 31st, that gives us plenty of time to develop the packet for February 7th. That would give you the list, and then, you would give us the list, and then that would give our candidates a week to be prepared to come in for the interviews. And that's really it for me today.
Hi, Patsy.
Hi. Thank you. The City of Sedro-Woolley, once again, is a recipient of a Department of Justice Bulletproof Vest Partnership grant. These are annual grants, and we now have funding through August 31st of 2020. The city is reimbursed half of the cost of each. The police department calls it armor. The grant program calls it vests. But each purchase, they pay half, which is currently around $410. And this is just the regular vest, not the kind that the SWAT teams wear. Those are much more expensive. And the grant covers about 4 or 5 per year. The finance department administers the federal grant and is in charge of keeping that schedule as far as whose vest is going to expire and needs to be replaced. And the police department has all of the policies in place that meet all the grant funding, make changes if necessary in those policies, and do all the purchasing and ordering of the grants. So we have our own department partnership involved as well. That's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Patsy. Judith.
Just a reminder, I won't be here on Valentine's Day because it's Ash Wednesday.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Cornegie.
I just wanted to remind everyone about the Sedro-Woolley, it's I guess a Youth of the Year countywide. Ours is January 31st, and I guess you have to go on their website. I tried getting more information. All I have is this, and if you didn't get one in the mail, I'm sure you can find it on the website. But it's coming up on the 31st, so I thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, everyone's here on the 7th, right?
Yes.
Jared, you as well on the 7th?
That's correct. I'll be there.
And on the 28th, are all of you planning to be here? Okay, well then I guess I would suggest we would make that schedule so we've got the total available elected officials at the 2 meetings. So we would not do anything on the 14th then, and have so the list could happen on the 7th, and then our candidates would have just a couple of weeks to be thinking about how they're going to answer the questions when the council interviews them on the 28th. If that's all right.
Very good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kinzer?
I have nothing today, Mayor.
All right. Councilman Owen?
Yes.
Have anything to report?
No, the only thing I have is most of the city people know that Bob Blakely passed away 2 or 3 days ago, and his funeral is going to be at 3 o'clock Sunday. So if he can be there, I'm sure the family would like that. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman DeYoung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. It's that time of year for taxes, and the local AARP is offering free tax service for folks, so I'd encourage you to, if you need a little assistance or have a question, to reach out to them. It's a free service that they're providing in the region. Also, expect some a good gusher of rain, so as you know, I'm always going to advocate for you to go out and take a look at your storm drain. Make sure that the water isn't pooling up, and that could cause some urban flooding or problems for yourself or others, and that we know that Sedro-Woolley Public Works is very instantaneous in taking care of those things. Been busy with the Sedro-Woolley State Legislative agenda with Olympia, and looking forward to continuing working that process. Also extremely concerned about the property damage that's happening around town that Chief Tucker alluded to, and I'm glad they have a plan, and let's work the plan, and as a community be patient for them working that plan. I know it's very aggravating, especially with the vehicles that we've seen being damaged, that they've kind of aged out past when you would have a comprehensive insurance on your car, so it is quite costly to folks to have that replaced, and let's show some compassion that way. And which leads me to the point of, if you're out walking your dog at night, or you're out having a smoke or whatever your routine is in the evening, you see something a little off. If you see something, say something. So let our folks know that something is a little odd, so we can get it checked out and put this issue to rest. Then also, I didn't mention it last meeting, but I wanted to thank our Sedro-Woolley Fire Department for working so hard on getting grants for your new air tanks. And when I saw those, how much they were and how much you were able, percentage-wise, to get that covered by grant, I just want to acknowledge your hard work in getting that done. And if it's okay, if I don't mean to ambush you, but if you could talk a little bit about how important those air tanks are to Sedro-Woolley's fire department.
Well, we don't actually have them yet. We've just applied for the grant, so we're now waiting. It's an interesting process. You apply for the 2017 grant in 2018, hopefully to be awarded in 2019. When the grant program first started, it would all happen in 1 year, but now there's so many departments applying for it. It takes such a long period of time. As far as the air packs go, those are such a critical part of our job. It enables the department members to be able to work in an atmosphere where they wouldn't be able to survive otherwise. But you can take back and look at what happened before we had air packs with Harold, because Harold would go in without them, and we don't want to end up like poor Harold anymore. So. But yeah, those hopefully we'll get those, and like I said, they went from back in the day when I first started, they'd be $500-600 to get an air pack, to where now that's $7,000 a pack, and that each one has to be fitted to the individual for the mask, so it gets rather expensive.
Well, I just want to commend you for doing all that hard work with the grant writing, and I know it can be tedious, but thank you for doing it. And then finally, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to remind folks that ballots arrive this weekend, and so take a look at the Sedro-Woolley school levy and school bond over your cup of coffee this weekend. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Couch, do you have anything to report?
Just a couple things, Madam Mayor. I want to first thank the council for allowing me to attend via phone. It's a beautiful, chilly night here in the Spokane Valley. I wanted to thank Wally Hoyt for following up on an email that I had sent regards to the Jones Road project and a complaint I had received from a citizen in that area. I appreciate Wally's quick follow-up. I want to say thank you to the police department for their diligent work on the vandalism issues and the ball bearing shootings that we've had going around town. When I called Chief Tucker on that, he was very well aware of the issue, and they're working diligently on that. And, just hopefully everybody can hear me, and again, I appreciate you guys letting me be able to participate. And I want to thank Ian Larson for taking the time to come to the council meeting. Looking forward to hearing his presentation.
All right. Thank you. Well, we're glad that you're participating as well. So I want to thank Councilman Couch and Councilman DeYoung. They've actually covered a lot of what I was going to say. I just want to reiterate, though, the importance of getting out and voting, especially supporting our schools. I think it's very important, especially if we want a healthy community that is going to continue to grow and be vibrant. So before I depart from this, though, I want to thank Councilwoman Cornegay for taking over for me while I was gone. I went on a mission trip last week to Nicaragua. Nothing like being in office for 2 days, packing your bags, and flying off to another country. So I want to thank her for covering for me while I was gone. And then one last thing that I want to bring up, reiterate what Aaron said, the applications for Ward 4. We encourage anyone and everyone who lives in Ward 4, meets the criteria, of course, to apply. I think it's a frightening thing sometimes when I can speak for myself, I guess, that it's a frightening thing when you're looking to be a part of something that you've never been a part of before and wondering if really that you can do it, if you're a good fit for it. But I can assure you that this is a great team. There's a lot of support. If you have any doubts, they bring you along. And I am willing to bet that you're more qualified than you think you are. So if you know someone who is thinking about applying for Ward 4 or if you yourself want to apply, I would encourage you to do so. All right? Okay, so let's move on then. Let's move on to public comments. It is 7:25, and I'm going to open the floor for public comments.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Joan Penny, and I've been before you most recently at the end of last year. I work with Community Action, and I wanted to introduce myself to the new council people and remind the existing council that I will be reaching out to each of you individually, either for a phone conversation or a coffee on your timeline in order to discuss an idea for a proposal to come before the City of Sedro-Woolley to help fund the new services center for Community Action. And I'll be doing that in the next couple weeks, but I wanted to put a face with that phone call. And while I'm here as well, I had the great opportunity last Friday to tour the new multifamily complex built by BYK and spend some time with Paul Woodmansey. And I want to congratulate your planning department and all of the city for moving forward with that project. It's a gorgeous project. We need housing so badly in the multifamily zoning and housing stock. And as I stand before you tonight, we're still close to almost 3,000 people in our housing interest pool that are about to be homeless or looking for housing in Skagit County, and that's through the coordinated entry system that it functions through Community Action. 92 of those folks are veterans, so they have VASH vouchers in hand but no place to rent. So I cannot applaud you enough for that new project and hope to see more of it. But good evening to you, and I look forward to meeting with you individually. Thank you.
Joan, one last thing.
Yes.
Before you go. So,
yes.
My bad. I should have reminded everybody that when you give your name, please give your address. We need to put the record. No, it's okay.
I'm from Mount Vernon, with Community Action, yes. And do you want my street address? With that, 4210 Lupine Drive, Mount Vernon.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I had a quick question.
Yes.
You said there's 3,000 people in the waiting for housing right now. Is that 3,000 individuals? Does that include families, or is that 3,000 families?
That's 3,000 applications, so sometimes that includes families, so the number could be higher.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your clarifying question. Yeah.
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Of those 3,000, you said that was in Skagit County?
That's correct.
So that's an aggregate number. Do you have an idea of how many are waiting here in Sedro-Woolley, not necessarily in the zip code as we know, which is more expansive than Sedro-Woolley? Do you have data on how many folks in Sedro-Woolley are waiting?
We do, and I can get that to you.
That'd be of interest.
We do pull it by zip code, and those are part of the client interviews that we do when they come in, and we go by their last zip code. And so that, because the homeless issue is regional, and these are not people coming from the outside coming in, they're really our friends, neighbors, and families, we go by that last zip code, so I can get that information for the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Mr. O'Neill.
Hi, I'm Dennis O'Neill. I reside at 109 Talcott Street. And I was just, when I ran for a short period for that one ward that Brenda won, One of the things I looked at is, and it came up later, or just before that, is, the city council salaries are pretty darn low. And I think that, it probably is a little bit harder for you to suggest raising your own pay, and I guess in some ways you can't, but it seems like everybody else is getting more money, and because the workload's coming heavier, you're spending more hours at it. And it's costly to run for election if you have an opponent, because there's just not any money in there, and it's more or less a civic duty, I guess, to try to represent the city in your area. I'd like to see you put together something to try to get a raise for yourselves. And I know that sounds pretty silly to a lot of people here, but I do recognize the effort you all put forth, and if you raised $800, it's not like it kicks in for yourselves now. I guess it takes effect the next time you get elected. But I think it'd be a wonderful thing to do for the posterity of Sedro-Woolley. And that's all.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Is there anyone else? Okay, I am going to close public comment. It is 7:30. So moving on to new business, and I'm kind of excited about this. We have a presentation by Ian Larson, and he is going to be talking about the Main Street program. And welcome, Ian.
Thank you guys for having me, and everybody that's helped me get here. So my name is Ian Larson. I am part owner of the Liberty Bistro downtown Sedro-Woolley. I'm at 813 Cultus Mountain Drive in Sedro-Woolley. Been working with Aaron Berg and Jana Hansen on kind of bringing up the notion of creating this Main Street program that follows the Washington State Main Street program. They have this 4-point approach that helps revitalize historical downtowns such as Mount Vernon, Port Townsend, thousands of others all across the country. And currently we have applied and are affiliates of this Main Street program. And today I wanted to come here to kind of give you guys an idea of what we're looking at doing and ask for your help to fast-track us to become Main Street accredited, which would allow us to tap into tax incentives. That money goes directly into the downtown district, along with a lot of other benefits and resources for us. So in your packets, you'll see there are 4 main approaches. There's the organization. It starts with the organization, and I've put together a group of people from the Chamber of Commerce and other nonprofits, people on the council, Jared Couch, business owners, and other people that are interested in working with us downtown to create a better, safer environment and work on all kinds of projects. Promotions such as maybe, these are ideas that we've had, like kicking off the pass when the gate opens up, Brewfest-like events. So I organized the Brewfest last year, so we'll do things like that. Retail events, sidewalk sales, beer gardens. We've done a couple of those in the alleyways next to the bistro. Stay in Sedro-Woolley campaigns. Along with also, design elements, creating a brand for us, helping the police department maybe with safety and security elements. I'm very passionate about adding more cameras on every corner of my building. I think it's very important, especially in the summertime. And then the last of the 4 points is really the economic restructuring, and that's changing people's minds about what downtown Sedro-Woolley is all about. Creating partnerships with organizations like EDASC, maintaining building directories, working with real estate agents, and really kind of getting into, what are some of the benefits of attracting new businesses down here. So following this Main Street program, not reinventing the wheel, they've really kind of laid out a real a really aggressive plan to bring the people, investors, citizens, businesses down and revitalize these districts. Funding. So what we're talking about doing is creating a nonprofit organization with the board of directors, which is, there are some people committed, you'll see in your handout, funded through multiple layers. So number one, so the Main Street has a tax credit incentive, which allows us to, it takes several years to get ramped up, and we have to be a formal accredited Main Street nonprofit organization, which there are steps to do. But in order to, once we get there, we're able to tap into 75% of B&O and public utility taxes from businesses that are in the district, which could equal, up to, I think, $100,000 in some areas. Again, it takes time to get to that point, and there's steps involved, and there's a lot of education. But one of the good things about this, following this Main Street program, is they've got liaisons and teachers and resources that actually come here and help us build this program out. We've also identified, through the help of a couple of our volunteers, millions of dollars worth of grants for historical and revitalization programs, which, with the aggressive nature of this group of people that we put together, I think we can at least get a small percentage of. Donations, I've already got commitments from several downtown retail businesses that want to actually help fund this organization. Fundraisers, things like the Brew Fest. We raised $14,000 for the food bank. I'm pretty sure we can probably do that through other projects. Maybe not at that scale yet, but we can do lots of small things, and that's one of the focuses of this Main Street program, is lots of small things. Make them see that you're making changes. And they kind of create some creative membership opportunities for the businesses like Liberty Bistro and the downtown people to kind of have some skin in the game. Our timeline. So in the packet, you'll see January 10th City Council meeting. February, I want to have within the first couple weeks, I'd like to have our first kind of board meeting where we take all of these tentative board members and assign roles and put together committees and get these people working for us. Marketing plans, start taking some of these ideas and putting them down on paper so we can make some progress on it. The Washington State Main Street program will actually send us a mentor that will come here and work with us for a whole day and work with our board and our executive directors and anybody that's going to be involved and help us get things pointed in the right direction. And then in March, I'd like to, really put together a big group of volunteers to help us execute all these things. Get our committees, more training, and help develop funding strategies with the board. So in the last page, one of the things I'm here to do is to really ask for your guys' help. So not only your support out on the street talking with everybody that's involved in your businesses and the departments and things, but also for money to help us get this thing off the ground. So I'm confident that in the budget that we have on here that we can certainly raise what we have. I'm asking for $15,000 from the city of Sedro-Woolley for the first year to fund the licensing, the first initial round of projects that we have, executive director benefits, insurance for the board, marketing, fundraising. It's all listed in the handout that you guys have. And then Aaron and I are going to work on year 2, year 3 strategies and things like that. So I'm open to questions from here.
Well, what I'd specifically suggested to Ian is that that for your benefit, having a single ask that would stretch from inception to viability would be important. And I think I've talked to the council in the past about the City Council Strategic Reserve Fund being a potential source of dollars to front-load this organization, and that ongoing the city, like others, can contribute through our utility tax program through the state, where 75% of it is actually funded by the state. But that front end is the most critical piece. I think Ian's being a little bit optimistic at that small of an ask, but my suggestion is we really get the full 2 or 3 years in place so we can come to you with a number that the council could be comfortable with, commit to, and really get this thing launched with a strong financial underpinning. I've also suggested that, at least from the city perspective, we could potentially furnish office space in year 1 to help get them launched. Ultimately, they can't live in our building just under the Main Street program rules. They have to be independent of the city and the chamber. So I know the chamber would also happily house this sort of operation, but that's just not allowed. So there's some elements of the program that really do drive it to be an independent organization. And my expectation is that John and Jana and I would all be involved, not at their board level since it's independent, but certainly working closely from the city's interests on this project. I think also the Business Development Committee would take a special interest in this as well.
First of all, I want to thank you for being here and making that presentation. And when I seen it in my packet, I just lit up because this has been brought up many times on the council. I brought it up that the city needs a facelift. And I usually drag my feet when they want to take money out of the reserve fund, but for this project, I wouldn't care if they took it all. But it's a good thing, and it really motivated me, and I'm sure the rest of the council too. Because I hope it goes full bore, and we see a change in the face of the city. It would be good for the city. It would be good for the tourist, and at least they would come in the little city, and it would be beautiful. And that would be great. So once again, I thank you, and if there's any way I can help, I'll certainly do.
Thank you.
I was wondering if this might be, let me know if I'm getting too much in the weeds. Because it's been brought up before, so I just had questions from before kind of left over. I was wondering what other cities that are comparable to Sedro-Woolley has this been done in?
So I actually have a list. Maybe I don't have it with me. I want to say it's Pascal, Port Townsend. There's hundreds in Washington State alone, and there's several very small ones that I've looked at specifically, but unfortunately I don't have my list in front of me. But
do you think they might be on their website?
Definitely is.
That DAPS, the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, is the one who administers Main Streets, and you can go to their website. There's Bainbridge, Bellingham, Camas, Centralia, Chehalis, Chelan, Cleellum, Colfax, Coupeville, Dayton, Helensburgh, Gig Harbor, Issaquah, Kennewick, Kent, Langley, etc. I got you through
the website again, Aaron?
DAP.wa.gov, or you could just Google Washington Main Streets communities.
Thank you.
So Mount Vernon's the closest. Port Townsend is, similar in our size. And then there was another program that was Oak Harbor. Yeah. Oak Harbor is also very new. But the coordinator of the Main Streets program, who works through DAP, will actually directly link Sedro-Woolley's growing group with a successful, similarly sized community that she thinks would be good for us to learn from and emulate. And Main Streets will pay that person to come to Sedro-Woolley and spend the day with us.
Thank you. I have one more question. I was curious if maybe in those cities, or if you have heard whether or not this might address the empty upstairs apartments and things like that, like, or absentee landlords, like an issue?
So, yes. So, I don't know specifically strategies that they have, but I do know projects that, for instance, I first learned about the Main Street program when I had a restaurant in Mount Vernon, and they did if you look at over the last 8 years in downtown Mount Vernon, it's totally changed. Their artwork, all that beautiful stuff that they've done is a lot of it is part of the downtown Main Street program, and that is working with absentee landlords. It's with just being diligent, contacting them, trying to change their mind, but then giving them also the tools. Say, hey, I have a volunteer that will come in and display this art or meet you there to clean and things like that. So I think it has to do with, it goes back to that organization.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I would just like to say I'm very excited about this.
Thank you.
A program like this really, really has to happen for Sedro-Woolley to remain viable in the future. So, in the little bit of research I've done on Main Street program, this is a program for us to use. So, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I'd really like to be involved, and this is a really good thing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming out and with the presentation. I really, as Councilmember Owen said, I was really happy to see it in the packet as well. And I think we've heard consensus here up on the dais today that everyone's excited about it. I'm going to drill down on a number you had, and I just wanted to see if if you had a number for Sedro-Woolley. I know it's going to, as you said in your presentation, it would take some years to get to the point where you'd be accredited and be able to take advantage of the tax incentives and the 75% of B&O and public utility taxes.
Yep.
And you stated that that's $100,000 in some areas. What do you anticipate that to be here in Sedro-Woolley?
Well, I think there is a grant that these taxes go into, and it is competitive. Do you have any idea, Aaron?
Yes, so the way this works is there's a total statewide maximum that can go through this program, since 75% of it's funded through essentially the state. And so in recent years, it got to the point where Main Street's communities would have parties in the evening of the day when you could first file these credit forms. So they'd invite their big business donor folks in, feed them, and keep them up until the appointed time when they'd all race to the computers to make their donations. That program has changed, as I understand it, or is changing to delete that whole time element and say, all right, there's X number of Main Street programs, there's X number of millions of dollars available to be distributed, so Tier 1, you've got X number of days to get your contributions. So when people donate, they donate to a specific program to get yours in.
I think we're getting in the weeds there a little bit, Aaron. So the education I just received was this isn't specific to the pool of Sedro-Woolley B&O and public utility taxes, which is really helpful. It's a statewide pool that would be we'd be in competition for.
No. The businesses who donate specifically to the Sedro-Woolley Main Street program, but there's a limit based upon this larger maximum, which is the division of the total available through the legislature and the number of Main Street programs that can go to any particular Main Street program.
Okay, so it's beyond of what revenue is going to be made out.
Yeah, and 100,000 is a fair number.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Councilman Couch, do you have any questions?
No questions. I just want to thank Ian for the information, and I echo what my fellow councilmen have said, and I think this is an outstanding program that I'd like to see us move forward on. So I'm in support of what my fellow councilmen have said.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I have one more question.
Oh, one more.
Is this tied in with the preservewa.org?
It used to be, but now it's actually part of the Department of Architecture.
Archaeology and Historic Preservation.
Yes.
Oh, my friends.
Affectionately known as DAP. Yeah, your friends.
Yes.
That would also like to get involved with cemeteries.
Yes.
But they don't give credits for that.
Archaeology, yes.
All right, Ian, thank you very much for coming. I, too, am very excited, so thank you. All right, so moving on, we are going to look at, getting back to the Main Street, we're going to have further discussion on it, obviously, and there's no action that needs to be taken tonight. So moving on to the amendment of the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code 2.76, it's the City Library, page 123 in your packet. There will be, this is the first reading, so we'll take no action tonight. I felt it was fairly straightforward, but does anybody need some clarification or have questions for Aaron regarding this? Aaron, is there anything you want to add to this?
As a first reading, this would be an item that we would, public could potentially comment on if they're interested in for 3 minutes. No, I think it's really housekeeping at this point. This is the code change that follows the 5 interlocal agreements that formed a partnership to really conform the code to our future practices in the library.
So I will, at 7:50, I will open up the floor for public comment for anyone who wants to speak to the amendment of the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code 2.76. All right, no takers. I will close the floor for public comment at 7:50. So, all right, so again, this is just a first read, and we'll be coming back to this. Let's see. Now on page let's see, where are we at here? 126. The council rules and procedures. Aaron, do you want to take this?
Sure. So we've talked about this, I think, 2 or 3 times now. Again, I use Spokane Valley as the model, working with the committee and the council. Spokane Valley is a council manager form of government with no separately elected mayor, and that's the reason why their manual had no provisions to replace a mayor, and also in the provision to replace council members doesn't reflect the role of the mayor. So we dealt with the mayor replacement at the special meeting earlier this month. This resolution modifies the existing procedures to recognize that the mayor has a role in casting a tie-breaking vote. And in making these modifications, I changed the citations to the state law to reference a mayor-council form of government rather than a council-manager form of government. And I recognize that the council's intent was still to have essentially a 4-vote majority make a replacement. So the mayor's tie-breaking vote would only work in this case if it's a 3-to-3 council. Then the mayor's vote becomes that fourth vote. If, on the other hand, there are only 5 council members present in this hypothetical, a 3-to-2 vote would not succeed, as the council has drawn a higher bar, just as you did with the mayor selection process, to say we want at least 4 votes. But I do not believe that the council has the ability to limit the mayor's tie-breaking vote. That's established in state law, and so it's, I think, important to have our manual reflect the reality of how the votes would actually shake out under certain scenarios. And those were the only changes, the code references and the recognition that the mayor has a tie-breaking vote.
Are there any questions? So actually I do. I know you and I had conversation regarding application for the current applicants for the Ward 4 position. And I noticed on page 127, under 1, publication, right about in the middle, it says that they should apply on an application form provided by the city. And I've already had calls from people who are interested, and we have just said that they should submit a written form. So this is a little confusing because
Well, that's an excellent point. We did not generate an application form. What we published in the newspaper does not reference an application form. It says letter of interest. So, that's our interpretation, is that the letter of interest would work. We could certainly create an application form. We could also make that modification to this to have it say apply by submitting a letter of interest, which would conform to what our publication says.
Modify that.
Go ahead and modify this. Well, this is a resolution, so it's ripe for action tonight. So, if a council member were to make a motion, I would think just add with the amendment to delete the application form and substitute that with a letter of interest, and that would be perfectly effective.
Okay. Are there any more questions? And if not, do I hear a motion with the change, the modification?
I so move.
Second. Resolution number 972.
Yeah, we're making the...
I think it'd be Resolution 980, wouldn't it? 980.
We're going to be striking application form from the document. That's correct. That's my intent. So that way, an applicant, all they have to do is submit a letter of intent. There's no need to create another form.
So my suggestion would be for the mayor to restate the motion that was made. I believe the motion that was made is on page 126 with the addition of the language I recommended, substituting a letter of interest for a written application provided by the city.
So it would read, motion to adopt resolution 980-18 with the, what was it, on page 127? With the modification on page 127, emitting the application form. A resolution amending Resolution 972-17 to conform to state law regarding the process of filling vacancies in the office of city member, a council member, excuse me.
Second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Perfect. Motion carries. All right, so what we have left is just informational only items. Does the building permit and planning, does anybody have any questions for John regarding that? Can we move on? Or the Sedro-Woolley Senior Center quarterly report. That was interesting. Do you still volunteer there, Carl?
I do, but I have been absent because of an illness lately, so I hope to jump back in. And I would encourage taking a look at how wonderful a place the senior center is, and I would encourage everyone to attend there. Spend the $1 for coffee and get to meet some folks. And it's a fantastic place, and I've really enjoyed my time there, and hope to see everyone there in the future. And it is, as I term it, a cultural jewel of Sedro-Woolley, so I'd like to see it protected and strengthened, and great quarterly report that was submitted.
Yes, it was. Thank you. And thank you, Councilman Owen, because I know you've been an avid supporter of this, of the senior center. Okay. Anything else? Anything for the good of the order? All right. There is no executive session tonight, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. We are adjourned.
Second.